Bhagavate Devaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Narottam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Dede Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Continuing with the discussion on Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita by Satsrup Das Goswami, Volume 4, in every town and village around the world, 1968 to 1971. Chapter 30th, London, A Dream Fulfilled. So George Harrison is speaking of his experience with Prabhupada. George, Prabhupada helped me to realize a multifaceted way to approach Krishna. Like the prasada, for example, I think it is a very important thing, prasada. Even if it is only a trick, like they say, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Well, even if it's a way to a man's spirit soul, it works. Because there is nothing better than having been dancing and singing or just sitting and talking, and then suddenly they give you some food. It's like it's a blessing. And then when you learn to touch him or taste him, it is important. Krishna is not limited. And just by Prabhupada's being there and pouring out all this information, I was moved. It's like the mind is stubborn, but it's all Krishna. It's all you need to know. It's all Krishna. This world is his material energy, too, the universal form. And in Prabhupada's books, there are these pictures showing Krishna in the heart of a dog and a cow and a human being. It helps you to realize that Krishna is within everybody. Although Prabhupada might have been teaching some higher aspect, what came through to me a lot was a greater understanding of how Krishna is everywhere and in everything. Prabhupada explained about the different aspects of Krishna, and he provided a meditation where you could see Krishna as a person everywhere. I mean, there isn't anything that isn't Krishna. Prabhupada saw George as a nice young boy and a devotee of Krishna. According to the Bhagavatam, no matter what a person may be materially, no matter what a person may be materially, if he is a non-devotee and never utters the holy name of God, he cannot possess any good qualities. Many Swamis and yogis in India, even some who considered themselves Vaishnavas, had no faith in or understanding of the holy names of Krishna. But George likes to chant Hare Krishna, and he had put the holy name of Krishna in his songs, which were tremendously popular all over the world. So he was serving Krishna through his music, and that made all the difference. So Prabhupada said, Mr. George Harrison appears to be a very intelligent boy, and he is, by the grace of Krishna, fortunate also. On the first day, he came to see me along with John Lennon, and we had talked about 2 hours. He wanted to talk with me more, but he has now gone to his sick mother in Liverpool. Prabhupada also saw George as a rich man, and Lord Chaitanya had strictly instructed devotees in the renounced order not to mix with worldly men. But Lord Chaitanya had also taught that a devotee should accept any favorable opportunity for propagating Krishna consciousness. If this boy cooperates with our movement, it will be very nice impetus. After all, he is a moneyed man. These moneyed men have to be very cautiously dealt with in spiritual life. We have to sometimes deal with them on account of preaching work. Otherwise, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly restricted to mix with them for Krishna conscious people. But we get instruction from Rupa Goswami that whatever opportunity is favorable for pushing on Krishna consciousness, we should accept. Prabhupada dealt with George cautiously, but encouraged him to chant the Lord's name, take his prasadam, and surrender all his works to him. When the devotees in the US heard of Prabhupada's dealings with the Beatles, some of them exaggerated the closeness of the relationship, especially in the case of John Lennon. Prabhupada heard of this and immediately stopped it. Regarding the booklet you and Gargamuni are sending, in the introductory portion signed by you and Gargamuni, you have said that I am personally instructed John Lennon and George Harrison in the yoga of ecstasy. This is not very satisfying. Of course, George Harrison sometimes comes to see me, and naturally I instructed him on the Bhakti Yoga. But the statement in the letter gives hint, as if I have been invited them for this. If this comes to their notice, they may take some objection, which will not go to our credit. These things should not be publicly advertised, and I don't know why this has been done. Anyway, if you have not distributed many of them, you must try to take out the portion which is not a fact. So Prabhupada was heavy, and he was vigilant that because we as neophytes, we try to advertise something or say something which might not be very useful, or it might hurt the mission. George, Prabhupada never really suggested that I shouldn't do what I was doing. I heard that at different times. He would say to the devotees that I was a better devotee because of my songs and the other things I was doing. He never actually said to me, but I always heard that. And the good thing for me was that I didn't have a feeling that I needed to join full time. I think it would have spoiled it if he had always been at me saying, why don't you pack in doing what you're doing and go and live in a temple somewhere? He never made me feel any different. Like I wasn't quite in the club. He was never like, I'm a plainclothes devotee. It's like that. I saw my relationship that I should help when and where I could because I know people in society. It's like any half decent person. You just try and help each other a little bit. He was always pleased with me because anything I did was a help. I mean, not just to the Christian temple as such, but just to anything spiritual that I did, either through songs or whatever. It pleased him. He was just always very friendly. He was always chanting. And at times he said that to me, just to keep chanting all the time or as much as possible. I think once you do that, you realize the chanting is of benefit. There are some gurus who go around making out that they are it. But Prabhupada was saying, I'm the servant of the servant of Krishna, which is really what it is. He wasn't saying I'm the greatest and I'm God and all that. With him, it was only in the context of being a servant. And I like that a lot. I think it's part of the spiritual thing. The more they know, then the more they actually know that they are the servant. And the less they know, the more they think they are actually God's gift to mankind. So, although he was obviously a very powerful individual, very spiritually advanced, he always retained that humbleness. And I think that that is one of the most important things. Because you learn more than all the words he says. You learn really from the example of how he lives and what he does. So this was really Prabhupada's special point. He always said, I'm servant of Krishna. Like as George Harrison is saying, so many gurus you meet, they will say, I'm God, because of this Mayavad philosophy that we all are God. I'm God, you're God, everybody is God. No. And Prabhupada was, I'm servant of Krishna. People generally don't like this idea of being a servant. Because in India, at least, we have this maid servants or the driver or the gardener, and we know the situation is not very good for a servant. So we don't like to be servant. But the service to Krishna or being a servant of Krishna is different. He's not there to exploit us. And this service is out of love, devotional service. It's out of love. And when something is done out of love, it's not considered like in the material world we have servants at home. Even Radharani says, I'm servant of Krishna. I'm his dasi. So this point we should understand that the servant of Krishna. And that too, now Prabhupada is saying we are not directly servant of Krishna, because if we are serving his devotees, then that's the best position. serving devotees of Krishna who are engaged in his service, that pleases Krishna more than anything else. Serving his devotees, taking care of his devotees, so that really pleases Krishna. That should be our goal actually. And we have to learn how to serve or to serve a devotee. First of all, it's not very difficult. It just we have to understand what is it that he or she wants. Humbly approach and serve, try to serve. Then it's the right way to make progress. The Daily Sketch reported Krishna people dine out at John and Yoko's place. A photograph showed the devotees seated out of doors taking prasada. Lunchtime at Tittenhurst Park, stately home of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and some of Lennon's house guests take their places in yesterday's sunshine. The picnickers are followers of the Indian Swami, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta. They have adopted the ways of the East, from the close and shaven heads right down to the Indian curry that they eat with their fingers, which is all rather out of character for a place like Tittenhurst Park, which cost John £150,000 and covers 60 acres of most exclusive Sunning Hill near Royal Ascot Racecourse. So Krishna's arrangement, see, got such a beautiful, such an expensive property, and also the company of the Beatles, and being with Beatles, they know everybody, and the political leaders or religious leaders or businessmen. So Krishna made such a wonderful arrangement. Prabhupada and his people, and John and Yoko and theirs made an odd combination. 2 days after Prabhupada's arrival at Tittenhurst, John and Yoko had flown to Canada to perform with the Plastic Ono Band at Toronto's Rock and Roll Revival at Varsity Stadium. In October, John and Yoko had recorded wedding album and begun work on a film, Rock and Roll Circus, and John had recorded Cold Turkey. Although John was usually shy, the devotees working at the main house found him open-hearted and generous with his possessions. He invited the devotees to stay permanently at Tittenhurst and farm. Whatever he had, he said he would share with them. So it's a very big thing, very big. One day, Yoko asked Yamuna if a devotee couple could stand in for her and John on stage at a London theatre. She and John had previously appeared there dressed in only a burlap bag and were supposed to make another appearance, but Yoko thought perhaps a devotee couple could take their place. The crowd, she said, might never know the difference, and even if they did, it would be a hilarious publicity stunt for the devotees. Politely declining, Yamuna explained why devotees could never do such a thing. When she told Prabhupada, he was adamant. None of his disciples would go. For days afterward, he condemned his sensuality. John invited Prabhupada to the manor to hear his recent recording of Cold Turkey. Although such a song held little interest for Prabhupada, John whimsically wanted him to hear it. Taking the opportunity to preach to the great man of the world, Prabhupada went. Within John's main sitting room, Prabhupada sat on the couch before the fireplace. The tape was ready on the large 16-track machine that had recorded it, and as Prabhupada sat patiently, John began to work the controls. But the machine wouldn't play. John began cursing under his breath, turning knobs and pushing buttons. Although Ani Purushottam had accompanied Prabhupada, two other devotees had outside beneath the windows listening. When they peeked in and saw John struggling with the machine, they began giggling in the shadows. Oh, Prabhupada said, so your machine is not working. Well, never mind. We have also made some recording and we would like to play this music for your pleasure. John resigned himself to listening to Prabhupada singing, and Prabhupada was saved from the cold turkey. Prabhupada kept his visit short, and as he was leaving, he saw on the wall framed life-size photos of John and Yoko naked. Wow. He also saw black and white silhouettes of a man and women in various positions of sexual intercourse. On returning to his room, he commented, "It's not good for us to continue staying here." He asked Mukunda to find him an apartment in London. The Berry Place renovations were still incomplete, and Prabhupada said he preferred to be in the city so that he could oversee the work. The natural setting of Tittenhurst was pleasant, but Prabhupada's host's way of life and his were incompatible. One day, John and Yoko, dressed in black, came to visit Prabhupada. Acknowledging him to be a great yogi with mystic power, they asked him to use his powers to arrange with Krishna that they be reunited after death. Prabhupada was disappointed. So Prabhupada said, "This is not my business." He said, "Krishna provides you with life and he takes it away in the form of death. It's impossible that you can be united after death. When you go back home, back to Godhead, you cannot be united. You can be united with Krishna, but husband and wife, this is simply a mundane relationship. It ends with the body at the time of death. You cannot pick up this kind of relationship again after death." So we get all, I mean, emotional about relationships. But as Prabhupada said, it ends with the body at the time of death. So we have to understand practically. At one end of the estate lived a bricklayer and his wife in a small, neglected Georgian house, hired by John to build a recording studio on the property. The bricklayer had only recently moved to Tittenhurst. A tough, burly man, he never spoke to the devotees until one day he asked several of them if they believed in ghosts. "Oh, yes," Kulashekar said. "Prabhupada says there are ghosts." "I don't believe," the bricklayer said. "My wife is having dreams, but I don't believe in ghosts." The bricklayer's wife revealed that both she and her husband had been hearing something at night. Last night they had gone running to John Lennon's house, terrified, complaining of sounds, chains rattling, boot heels pounding, and the noise of something, like a body being dragged across the floor. The bricklayer had seen his wife violently shaken by the shoulders, although no one else was there. When the devotees told Prabhupada, he said, "You tell John Lennon that if he wants, we can get rid of these ghosts." Mukunda relayed the message, but John had already invited his friend, a white witch, to come and exorcise the ghost. The warlock visited the bricklayer's cottage, and a few devotees tagged along. Over the fireplace in the main room, they found a carving of a person with a ghost coming out of his forehead, and on the opposite wall, mahogany runes. "These are ancient witch runes," the warlock said, shaking his head. "I can't do anything here." When John asked the devotees to try the method, Prabhupada directed them. At the bricklayer's cottage, they should sprinkle water offered to Krishna in the doorways, blow conch shells, and then have kirtan. A group of devotees went, and Kulashekar led the kirtan. After half an hour of chanting, Kulashekar felt a great release of pressure within the room, and the kirtan became ecstatic. The devotees returned to their engagements, assuring John that the ghost would not return. The bricklayer and his wife moved in again. The next morning, Prabhupada passed the old cottage on his walk. "So, how is the ghost?" he asked. "No news, Prabhupada," Kulashekar said. The following morning, Prabhupada again asked, "How's the ghost? Would they like to have him back?" Years ago in India, Prabhupada said, when he was running his chemical business, he had detected ghosts in the building at night. "What did you do?" one of the devotees asked. "I simply chanted Hare Krishna and the ghosts would go away." Prabhupada then opened his eyes wide and gestured with both hands, mimicking the frightened workers in the plant who had come running to him. "Babuji, Babuji, there is a ghost, there is a ghost." The devotees laughed. Actually, Prabhupada said, there are many ghosts here, especially over by the stable areas. They are attached to this place, but they will not harm you if you just chant Hare Krishna. So many things to notice. Prabhupada said there are many ghosts here in the stable areas. So Prabhupada could see them or he could at least sense them. And he knew how to or to get rid of them. He said, just chant Hare Krishna, they will not harm you. So much power. I mean, we say, Bhut Pishacha Nikat Nahi Aave Mahavir Jab Naam Sunave, which is also true. Chant the names of Hanumanji. But we chant Krishna. So, by hearing Krishna's name, they get benefited. The ghosts also, they get benefited. They get purified. And then, for whatever reason, they become ghost. Generally, it is if somebody commits suicide, then his next body is not ready yet. So he has to, and because of sin of committing suicide, he has to take the form of a ghost. Or if many times, as Prabhupada explained, if somebody meets a very terrible accident, suppose a car accident, and the body is not fit to be lived in. So sometimes it's called untimely death because his next body is not ready and this body is not fit. So he has to become a ghost for some time. And why ghosts disturb others? Because see, ghost, on the soul there is a subtle body and a gross body. So the ghost, they don't have gross body, they only have subtle body. But to enjoy this material world, one needs to have a gross body. So that is when they disturb others. So if somebody is not spiritually powerful, then the ghost means this soul with the subtle body can enter this gross body and try to enjoy life through this, another ghost. So there could be two souls in a single body, and that's when the problem starts. So the point is, one should become spiritually advanced, strong. So the ghost then cannot disturb him. Because they also get purified by hearing Harinam or having seen such a pure devotee, they also get purified. And purification means that they can um, go on their way to another body, to get another body, legal body. So chanting, as Prabhupada told devotees, just sprinkle some Charnamrit in the room and chant, and blow conch shell and chant. Prabhupada was anxious to leave Titan House, and by late October, some of the devotees had moved to Berry Place. Prabhupada no longer had any business at Titan House. Mr. Lennon was an influential person who had seemed interested in Krishna, but now there was no point in Prabhupada staying on at their estate. Yoko and her ex-husband, Dan, now John's manager, were also pressing John to get rid of devotees. Dan complained that the devotees were trying to take over the place. The devotees, on the other hand, complained to John that Dan and Yoko were misrepresenting them. On one side were Dan and Yoko, and on the other, the devotees. John was in the middle. He had to choose. John told Mukunda that as far as he was concerned, he got along fine with the devotees, but the people around him were having difficulty. He would give the devotees a couple of more weeks to move to their new temple in the city. The devotees were already in the process of moving to Berry Place, and Mukunda had found an apartment for Prabhupada a short drive from the temple. In a few days, everything would be ready for Prabhupada to move. On the day Prabhupada left Titan House, he stopped at his car and said, I want to say goodbye to a few friends first. He then took a last walk through the grounds, giving careful attention to the trees, sometimes touching the leaves, just as on his morning walk. Then he left. The next day, a severe storm swept through the Titan House estate, breaking windows and uprooting trees. Wow. So I guess since Prabhupada was there, even the storm wasn't coming. Anyway, I guess we can stop here. See, anybody has any questions or comments? You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Jai